All right.
The following contains violence, coarse language, and adult situations not suitable for minors. Viewer discretion is advised.
Brutal!
Coarse language and adult situations not suitable for minors. Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay, I'm still hearing it. Okay, I'm still hearing it.
Yeah, we're having internet troubles.
Oh. Actually, I think I just forgot.
Truly, I am.
Actually, I think I might have just forgotten to mute it to mute the video on my end. I just went onto a different video just to mute it. Fuck it, whatever. I think we're good now.
Okay. All right, I'm on my phone for the thing, so hopefully. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this. I'm not looking forward to this. As we all know, it is the month of rampant gay degeneracy, so, judge me if you must. Apparently, this went over. This shit did not go over very well, even among, I guess, my supposed people. What is this full of? It is full of Coke. I just found like a full Coke Zero bottle thing on my desk. I thought it was empty. Anyway.
Yeah.
This.
I just look up QUforce on YouTube, and some of the first results are from Yellow Flash and Cloudfish TV. Nice.
Yeah, I watched that. I watched that video. It's Twitter hates it.
Yep. Even looks like Kaiser Neko from Team Four Star also responded to it.
Well, now we're jumping in the barrel, I suppose. It is a very easy fish to shoot. Anyway, yeah. Shall we?
Yes, let's.
Don't.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Still there, Clayton? Hello, Clayton. Well, folks, looks like Clayton's dead. Let's wait.
Hello?
Hey, you with us?
Yes.
What happened?
I dropped. The Wi-Fi dropped.
Ah.
So, I suppose it wouldn't be one of our podcasts without technical difficulties, but,
It's a staple.
All right, so let's do this.
Yes, let's.
So let's begin with just what is on screen right now. obviously it's the worst thing to look at. It's an eyesore. Like, it's not even like the animation in this thing is ugly.
So is this supposed to be some kind of gay nightclub that they're at?
Guess. I don't know. I don't know what sort of nightclub would have what I assume are stilettos on the back wall, but like all of this entire shot, why is this framed this way? Like, nothing here is pleasing to look at, and that's a very big problem, because if your animation is not pleasing to look at, there's no one that's going to want to watch it. Look at the lines on these characters. Like, ugh.
All right, let's do this. What the? So these are drag queens. I hope.
Yeah, one can hope.
I'm not hearing it from my end.
Oh, hold on. I might be stupid.
Well, you hear to hear, folks. Clayton is stupid.
All right, we'll start from the beginning. Can you hear it now?
You gonna play it? No.
All right.
Right.
Okay, I hear it now.
We're the first queer agents.
Oh, hey, girl.
All right, let's start with how this character is introduced. I can assume that they will be some sort of staple character. The immediate introduction to this character is like, oh my gosh, I'm super feminine and gay. You're like, oh hey girl.
Yes, you do that
Which
too
is-
well.
You're welcome. It's automatically annoying, and I don't want them to speak anymore.
Like, just
Ever.
what? Like, assuming these are, at least I guess they're drag queens or something. Like, if that's the case, it's like what's with people's obsession with drag queens? I don't understand.
I don't know either. But again, what are these? What are the faces like? Why are there random lines on some of their noses or their faces? Like,
I guess it's like the bone line or something.
I guess, but why have it there? To make the nose more distinguished?
I guess.
Well, don't draw your noses with flat. Don't draw your characters with flat faces.
That's my job, Daddy.
Right.
We're QUforce.
We're the first queer agents in the field ever.
Ever. By the way, Netflix, terrible choice in music. I'm just gonna say it now. I watched this whole trailer all the way through before today. The music choice in this is awful. It grates on your ears. Like, you have to be inebriated in some form or fashion to enjoy this. And I don't mean like off alcohol. I mean like you're on ecstasy or Molly or what, or some such nonsense.
Don't stop. That's called an entrance, by the way.
Hold on. Can we play this at like half speed? Half speed. Let's go through. So
Queer agents in the field ever.
all right, so let's look at our characters, shall we? So presumably these guys are gonna, these four in the foreground are gonna be background characters. We have
Possibly.
what I assume is some sort of fat lesbian. The 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 muscle guy, the muscle gay, the I guess dignified lesbian, transgender, definitely right here in the like, what the fuck, in the fuckery. I don't even know how to describe this thing's outfit. It is some sort of hood cape type thing.
Yeah, it looks like a hoodie that doesn't fit. It's too big.
Yeah. Then you have the twink with black and blue hair. And then I assume the one in the tie is the token straight guy.
Possibly.
Like, he doesn't have any lines in the trailer, not that I can remember. Like, he doesn't speak, he's just there. So all of these are like the worst they're stereotypes, which is everybody's issue. But let's talk about their designs. I mean, why are we looking like none of these characters are attractive to look at? Plus, it's very noisy. Like, my eyes are immediately drawn to the woman in the middle because she has like the most quiet, she's the quietest. The two characters in the middle are the quietest, but everywhere else I look, it's like noise. He's noise. There's like, it hurts my eyes. Very loud animation. Oh, I didn't think the music could get worse. It got worse. I'm just gonna... Alright, so let's assume this is the villain, which, kudos to Netflix. It's not some sort of, like, Donald Trump equivalence, nor is it some sort of homophobic super Christian straight man.
Looks like a troll doll.
Exactly. So, kudos to Netflix, though I'm sure inevitably should this get released, that will be one of the villains, if not the main villain.
That's called an entrance, by the way. The best spies in the world!
I feel like this shit's ripping off Archer.
Yes, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, but it doesn't ever... It doesn't play Archer correctly, is the issue. Like, where Archer... Like, it's supposed to be a parody of James Bond kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which, would be... If you heard that, excuse me. Which would be fine, and I'd be down for that. But you're not taking advantage of the unique aspects of James Bond's character. Like, he's drunk. He's very much open about what he does and who he is. And the people around him are like Archer, the reason Archer works as a parody of James Bond is because it takes the aspects of James Bond and sort of puts them into their realistic light. Like James Bond constantly getting drunk, constantly ordering drinks while he's on missions, and sleeping with every woman he comes across. Recklessly blowing shit up and wasting resources.
Well, also, reason why Archer works so well is just because all the characters are extremely, extremely dysfunctional.
Exactly.
So I'm not. So I mean, if they can, I mean, maybe this show will have that aspect.
I mean, if you were going to do it, why not capitalize on it in the trailer? No, you should not. This shit isn't worthy of drinking to. Nah, I'll tell you that right now. What we're doing is I forgot to clip it, but we're literally scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
Welcome, Worse Than You.
But again,
glad you could join us.
Like another reason the Archer works as a concept is the people writing it understand both the audience they're playing to and the concept and the source material. So whereas the James Bond parody in Archer works because it's like it casts James Bond as what he actually is, instead of a suave ladies' man, he's a drunk uncooligan. This seems to cast most of its characters as, if not fairly competent, and at least semi-competent, which is not something Archer is.
Yeah, now I really want to rewatch Archer. It's been so long since I watched it.
I don't.
You don't?
I find Archer too annoying. I will watch the best of his mother, the best of Pam, and the best of Cheryl. And that will be my Archer for forever.
I love Archer.
But another thing about Archer is it's very clearly got a style to it. And while there's style to this, it's kind of lazy. Like, there's no background here. It's just, hey, we put a bunch of buildings in the background, and which would be fine if the characters were anything of. Did you
Sorry, knock my mic over.
Okay, I was wondering what that was. Which would be fine if the characters were anything interesting to look at. But instead, we have somewhat amorphous shape, like sort of ambiguous gendered shape, and then the guy you see walking down the street. There's nothing interesting to look at here. There's nothing to draw the eye.
Oh, get me hard right
Yeah, I was right. The trans person is the tech guy.
Of course they are. Worse Than You is correct. The characters blend in too well with the background. Like, there's nothing interesting about the characters already. And this is a trailer, so you don't have. One of the things with a trailer is you don't have the time to build character. You have to be very quick, basically introduce all the characters and give sort of plot hints about what sort of plots are going to happen within the span of about a minute. So they don't have time to not have interesting character designs. assume these are the voices for all the characters. I don't know who these people are. Also, worse than you, just so you know, this is half speed, so we can break things down a little bit better.
Screen froze up on my end.
I have it paused right now.
I mean, I'm still on the part where they're in the car, and the black lesbian's driving. Should I just refresh the page?
Yeah, try that. Uh-oh. Well, I hope he comes back. He's back.
Hey.
I mean, I know who Wanda Sykes is by, like, vague notion. I don't know who anyone else here is. Wait, isn't Patty Harrison the voice of Pam?
No, I think that Pam is Amber Nash, I think.
Oh.
All right, freeze! The room's empty. I wasted all that masculinity on nothing.
Not nothing. My little butthole went boop.
It hurts. I'm in pain right now.
I could make a joke about your butt right there, but that would be beneath me.
This entire scene is beneath us all. But let's talk about the two lines this character has gotten. These two characters have spoken the most in this trailer. The black lesbian got one line. But these two have spoken the most. This man has only delivered exposition. And he has complained about entering a room that was empty. This one has made 2 sex jokes. So, from this trailer, I can assume that this one will just be like sex jokes. All of it. That'll be it. And I don't know what about Captain Exposition here. He's so generic.
You can't pander to the gays, they can smell it. You're acting like city bank at Pride.
You know?
Could you just slow it down even more?
Doing that doesn't prove you're self-aware. No, I didn't. You know, saying, oh, you can't pander to the gays, they can smell it, doesn't prove you're self-aware, Netflix. If anything, it shows that you don't have any idea why people don't like being pandered to. Because on the one hand, sometimes pandering works. And we give it another name. It's called fan service. But pandering also doesn't work when you rely entirely on stereotypes instead of, making actual characters. Now, I'm perfectly willing, and I'll be honest here, perfectly willing to give anything a shot. High Guardian Spice was perfectly willing to give it a shot. What else is there? Like, I'm perfectly willing to give whatever's out there, like whatever media is out there, a shot. Because if we don't, you miss out on things. This could be a good show. I haven't seen any of the... I've never seen Rosario Vampire.
I've heard of it.
This could be a good show. I'm willing to acknowledge that possibility. The problem is they haven't shown me anything that that makes me want to give it that shot. Like there's nothing here that makes me want to go, yeah, I'd watch that. In fact, I would say that this makes me not want to turn off Netflix and never use it again. Because it just feels so... How shall I say this? Shallow. Everything in this trailer feels shallow, from the animation to the music to the lines. It all feels super shallow. And what really is the problem is, and that's a problem, because the people that we complain about on a regular basis, Hollywood, Netflix, YouTube, they've finally gone and done it, and they've created their own thing. And they've created their own thing, and they should be lauded for that. They've finally done what we've always asked them to do. Leave our shit alone. If you want to make this diversity, representation, and critical race theory bullshit show, leave our shit alone. Go make it yourself. And they have done that and it has been met on multiple occasions with mockery and scorn. The New Warriors,
Exactly. I was just thinking about that. Snowflake and Safe Space.
The New Warriors. There's High Guardian Spice. They've tried and tried over and over again. But because they are shallow, out of touch people, well, this is the result. But again, I'm perfectly willing to give these things a shot. They just have to influence me to watch. They have to impress me, basically. This does not impress. The music is grating and makes me want to turn off the trailer. The characters are bland and boring. They don't look interesting. Like, hold on. This is the shot of all the characters. Like, this is what I assume all the characters' regular designs are going to look like. And nothing here stands out. Hello, John Rice. There is nothing here worthwhile.
Yeah, you just missed it. You just missed out on us reacting to a really cringy trailer. So, in other words, you're actually in luck.
And I think that's it. Yeah, it's just Netflix.
All right.
Logos and whatnot.
So on to part 2.
Indeed. We should begin your bitching now.
Yay.
Do you have this article open, or do you want me to read?
I have it open.
Okay. All right. So let's begin. How autism powers my D&D. Before we begin, I read through this whole thing, and while it doesn't it's not super like SJW nonsense filled. It is this gives a better view. It is very cringy. It's also very humble
Expect
braggy.
no less from Polygon.
So let's. Fair enough. Again, we're literally scraping the bottom of the barrel here. All right. D&D allows me to connect with my friends in a way I couldn't before. In my world, there are flumps that speak with gestures and colors instead of words. Owlbear guardians travel with inexperienced adventurers, and people can evict spiders from their homes with smooth negotiation tactics. It's a world inherently amicable to someone interested in social justice, art, and mythical creatures.
Okay.
It sounds like the most boring world ever.
Yeah, man. If I was DMing, I'd have you guys fight the spiders.
Exactly. Like, the most interesting thing is that people can evict spiders from their homes with smooth negotiation. Like, that's literally the only interesting thing here.
Yeah. When I DM'd for D&D, I made a fucking giant spider wasp. At first you think it's just a big spider, then all of a sudden when it crawls out of its crevice, all of a sudden it has wings and a stinger.
Okay, hold on.
Do 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 dun 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 dun.
Just wanted to show the people what a flump looks like.
Oh, that's an actual creature in D&D.
Yeah,
I
it
guess.
is.
Really?
The image is loading.
Oh, is that the flying spaghetti monster? That's what it reminds me of.
Basically, yes. Hold on. There.
Yeah,
You
damn
get the
right,
picture.
worse than you. Combine the two most terrifying bugs together.
Like, this is what a flump looks like. Now, they're neutral creatures. They're actually lawful good in 5e. They're personally, I think they should be neutral. But what they do is they're telepathic, so they just float around. No, John Rice. No, Cthulhu Hatagan. But they just float around chilling. They're arguably like the coolest creatures in D&D. But they just float around chilling, and why ruin what is an arguably interesting creature that speaks to you through telepathy, then basically force your players every time they talk to one of these things to roll an insight check effectively.
Absolutely. I didn't know an owl bear was also a thing.
Owlbears are a thing.
It's kind of a bland combination. Maybe if it had wings.
Their lore's more interesting. But then again, like, again, that's boring. Owlbear guardians. So, what defines an adventurer in this world? Like, is it just someone that travels? Knowing who H.P. Lovecraft was as a person worse than you? Probably not. I mean, he was racist, but that's not uncommon for his time period. Mostly it was the fact that he's a freak. Like, Lovecraft was basically like xenophobic to everyone that wasn't him. He was genuinely scared of interacting with people, which, might mean that H.P. Lovecraft was autistic. Because, they didn't have the thing for that back then. Anyway. He was. Just, the man was flawed. I suppose, like any human being. Our story takes place on the western coast of Rogan, a country that only exists in my weekly Dungeons and Dragons campaign. The past year, I've spent countless hours with my friends creating a world that is habitable for my existence. So it's not, I wanted to create a world that would be... It's not, I wanted to create a world that I thought would be interesting for people to experience and play, and it's, I created a world that is more habitable for me.
Yes. Do not compare H.P. Lovecraft to Chris Chan. How dare you? Hey, Cthulhu is an actual original character.
True. But
This is my original character, Cthulhu. He's a dragon mixed with an octopus.
Like my original character, or Goreflame, the nocturnal giant toad. Don't steal. Anyway, again, I've spent countless hours with my friends creating a world that is habitable for my existence. I love that line. I could harp on it until the end of time, because having DM'd, it's not that I spend time creating a world that I think I would like. It's I spend time creating a world that I think my players and myself would enjoy playing it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And not, I don't like reality, so I will substitute it with my own kind of thing. When modern society feels hostile, which I'm sure for this person is all the time, because remember, everything is sexist, everything is racist, and you have to point it all out, I can find comfort once a week leading my friends through a narrative where all my quirks fit.
Yes. How do I take this and make it all about me?
Yeah, exactly. You may be autistic, author, but you may be autistic, Meg, but you are just from this one paragraph, I can tell that you are an exceedingly selfish person.
Mm-hmm.
As a non-binary person with autism, I have plenty of so-called quirks.
Yeah, I mean, if you think you're neither a male, a girl, nor a boy, yeah, that is a clear sign that you probably don't do well in social situations.
I'm a daydreamer who often carries a sketchbook to record story ideas, character drawings, and thoughts I don't always feel safe sharing. If I'm overwhelmed, I can stutter or accidentally say thoughts out loud that don't contribute to the conversation, which forces me to clam up and fall silent for the rest of the evening.
Wait, she accidentally blurts things out in her thoughts.
I guess it's not very clear. Like, what overwhelms her? Is it fair enough?
So I wondered
Like,
if H.P. Lovecraft had like some kind of rival that he would constantly mouth off.
I
If we're
think
gonna,
he did, and I can't remember who it was. It was
okay.
another author at the time.
I'm the true and honest H.P. Lovecraft. The other guy's just an imposter. That just
But
leads to H.P.
what
Lovecraft just jumping up and down screaming.
like what qualifies as overwhelmed for this person? I don't think so. I think it's just like one of her quirks, but I'm wondering how like what she would do who overwhelmed. Like what how would she be overwhelmed? In what scenario is this? Like I don't understand. She's very clearly comfortable with DMing, probably because, she's a control freak and in control of the situation. But is it just sitting at the dinner table? Well, can that overwhelm her? If so, I would pose the question of why have you not, exposed yourself to that scenario beforehand? Like what overwhelms you about general social interaction? Like I get it. If a stranger comes, like if you have to hold a conversation with a bunch of strangers, yeah, that can be a bit overwhelming and I can understand why you would maybe do this. But like does this occur on the regular? Is it like something that happens among your friends? I feel like I need more context for this. But at the same time, I don't really give a shit. Fantasy has the incredible ability to accommodate the most unique parts of ourselves and welcome them. However, I never had found as much a home in fantasy as I did when I started playing D&D. My first character was a halfling death cleric with a mummified squirrel as a familiar. You know what? Good for her.
What would a squirrel for a familiar even do?
I don't know, but why does a cleric need a familiar? Is a better question. Charisma was her lowest stat, and I love that she was more comfortable talking to dead people than her friends in the party. Her social weaknesses were vital to her character and served as a place where I could find meaning for my own awkwardness. The thing about characters in D&D is they can grow and change.
Honestly, speaking as somebody on the spectrum myself, I have more fun playing characters that are not me.
Exactly. Like, why would you play a character that is you? That effectively is you, just not interacting with the party on more than one occasion. Like, it feels like this was. It's my first D&D character, so I'm gonna play the easiest class. I'm gonna play the easiest class with low charisma, so I don't have to interact with characters. and I can tell you this from experience because one of my players rolled really poorly on his stats, and he was still very much a part of the party. Still should, like, one of the things about this character is what influences, like, the reason you would have low charisma on a character like this is because they don't interact with people very often. So it would stand to reason that they would be someone that didn't interact with people very often. So awkward situations are awkward. So she's sort of awkward. On top of that, she's a death cleric. So, add to the awkward here. But as the campaign went on, her more interesting, like, she should have become more open, more interested in interacting with people. Hell, maybe at the end of the campaign, she's one of the head negotiators. Feel like I feel like this person didn't ever do that. She just used her character as an excuse, her character's low charisma as an excuse never to interact socially with the party or with any of the NPCs. She just stayed separate from the world,
which is extremely frustrating. I speak from experience. My first D&D campaign, it was an online one, and we had up to like 7 or 8 players. So I hardly had a chance to do anything, to say or do anything. It's extremely miserable if you're doing D&D but you don't interact with the other people.
Were vital to her character and served as a place where I could find meaning for my own awkwardness. Like, why not? Why wouldn't you, I don't know, challenge yourself and play a high charisma character? Like one that was forced to be the face of the party more often than not. A social negotiator. Or of some kind. When players build characters, it's natural for them to exaggerate something about their personalities. Whether you're playing a dumb but strong barbarian, a bookish wizard, or an extroverted minstrel, at the end of the day, you've probably created a character who wouldn't likely be considered neurotypical. That's another part about why D&D is so exciting for people with autism. We can see ourselves in it. No. When I build a character around something I think is interesting or a story I want to tell. Like right now I'm playing a marine warlock who got his powers from a sword that basically collects the souls of wielders and those it defeats, and he constantly has those voices running around in his head. There's good reason. Like that's the basis for the character. I didn't say, you know what my personality is like? I'm sort of weak and cowardly. I'm weak and cowardly. I'm going to play someone who stands up and be brave. You were gonna say something, Caesar?
Oh no, I was just gonna pretty much repeat what I said earlier. Just like why? I mean, you can see yourselves in your character, but it's kind of boring. It's more interesting to play someone that's different from you. It's more fun that way. I mean,
also
it's called a role playing game for a reason.
it also, if you were to like, it also forces you to change how you think about things. Like people who play RPG, who play what is effectively a self-insert in a fantasy setting, don't get anything out of it. I would argue. I would argue that they don't get anything out of it. And then people who take a character that is atypical for their nature and attempt to do something interesting, or like they learn from that character. They learn from how the world interacts with them. And that kind of thing. Like the people on Critical Role, well, like they changed because of how they played their characters. They changed because of the people their characters became and the people their characters are. After playing for a few weeks, I transitioned quickly from playing to being our group's dungeon master. My friends thought it was a natural progression. As I'm a novelist and writer by trade.
Triggered face.
However, I don't think any of us realized the validation I'd get from taking on such a role. I can tell you wrote. I'm gonna guess that yes, you received a lot of validation for this. You know why? Because you wrote an entire article about it. Experts have found that my experience as an autistic person playing D&D isn't an isolated incident. Many autism support programs include some measure of role-playing to help develop interpersonal skills. People with autism often benefit so much from role-playing that a new game, Critical Core, has been designed as a social intervention tool for children and adults with autism.
Okay, well, I hope in those games the characters they play are not their self inserts.
I agree, and role-playing helps everyone. Like I use it in my job on a regular basis. It's just to help you break down and isolate a scenario. It's to help you with certain scenarios. That's not new. Not shocking that you have this sort of thing occurs. 1 second, the screen just dropped. There we go. Role-playing games like D&D are valuable for neurodivergent people because they bring structure and relatively unsocial interaction. While there's a subtle yet solid narrative thread building the story, that thread is maintained by a trove of rules that govern every scenario. Really? I've run into scenarios all the time as a DM that just don't fit the rule book. So, yeah. I mean, like, yes, it tells you it doesn't say in this scenario roll XYZ, because it tells you this is what this tool, like yeah, exactly worse than you. But the idea that there's rules to every scenario is incorrect. There are tools for every scenario. Like a trove of rules that govern every scenario. No, there's not. There are tools in every scenario. How the party and how the DM react and use the tools at their disposal is what builds the narrative. If you're using if author if you're using D if you're using DM, if you're using rules in every scenario, you're playing a very boring game. Because it means that when someone breaks the rules, you don't have any you don't know how to use your tools properly. So if someone were to say, if someone, for example, if one of your characters is like, I want to, I don't know, I want to attempt to negotiate with the with a villain in the middle of combat. Well, now there's no rule that expressly says what your villain is going to be like, or what your like what sort of what DC is your villain at what mood are they in? Has the party actually harmed them? Have they done something to make the villain not willing to hear them? A DM has to take all those things into account, but there's no rule set that says is this is how the villain's feeling. There's no written rules that say if a character does this, character X, if a character does X, this is how it will play out. These are the two possibilities of how it will play out. Instead, you're given the tools saying, you, the DM, set the DC based upon what you think, based upon your judgment. The character will roll a charisma check, a charisma or persuasion or deception check, and based upon that roll, if it beat that DC, but these are all tools to resolve this scenario. It's not rule. People with autism don't have to worry about misunderstanding sarcasm because an insight check can more or less reveal the speaker's intentions. Not true. 100% not true. An insight check is only as good as what you roll, and what you roll may reveal nothing. Or with an insight check, the DM could be entirely vague enough. Could be entirely vague with what you interpret. Even if you were to roll a natural 20, to set on on an insight, the DM could be could say, you can tell they're not deceiving you, but they're not giving you the whole truth. Very vague and very open to interpretation. And yes, the character is hiding something, but you don't know what. It's probably not. You don't know if it's going to harm you. You don't know if it's going to hurt you. Better yet, a player doesn't have to worry about being suave or convincing to try and manipulate someone. While my real-life charisma score is low, my tiefling warlock almost always succeeds on his deception rolls.
I like that. I like that she put her quote off to the side with bigger text. Yeah, totally not.
You're not
fucking
role
your own
playing
dick right
very
now.
well, are you? Almost always succeeds on deception? Really? Because, for me personally, if a character wants to persuade or deceive someone, I have them tell me what they're going to say. And based on what they say, and depending on the character they're speaking to, that DC may change.
Shit. She must have a really good D20.
Yeah.
She must have that, or our mutual friend has the has the die as that D20 that almost always lands on a high number.
He does.
I swear to God, I swear that there's something inside that die.
Those precise guidelines for social exchanges make D&D almost perfect for building relationships without the confusion of real-world interpersonal dynamics, where vague concepts like subtext and tone reign supreme. but those exist in D&D as well. Like, it's called interacting with your party, or you can't, because like unless you're constantly rolling insight checks or constantly making persuasion and deception rolls, you do have to read into the tone and subtext of what someone is saying. Like, these things exist in D&D. Even if, like, unless everyone in this person's world just goes around basically robotically explaining things or expositing randomly, like a tone, subtext, tone, and even sarcasm all exist within the D&D world and can vary from NPC to NPC. Why are you pretending that they don't? Unless that's just how you run the game, which is weird. And I can't say I would be interested in seeing that. It's somewhat boring, I would say. Even more importantly, a character-driven narrative helps people with autism explore and celebrate traits that might be harder to see in day-to-day interactions. Speaking face-to-face isn't something I'm particularly great at. I tend to look away as I struggle to maintain eye contact, and when I get tired, I often stutter as it becomes harder to express myself. I get self-conscious and often shut down. Okay, that sounds like a you problem.
Yeah, that's...
Like,
I mean, I can't speak for everybody on the spectrum. I don't like making eye contact with people just because it feels weird to me to just constantly be stare blankly at someone in the eyes.
Exactly. But again, the idea that this overwhelms you, I assume an adult at least in her 20s, who has presumably lived with this neural, I don't want to say a disease, but
Disorder.
Thank you. That's the word I was thinking of. I was trying to figure it out. This neural disorder for most of her life would have either found a way to work around this or overcome it to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a teenager, I had autism pretty bad, but it got better for me just with age.
Like, and I get it. It's not gonna go away. That's not what I'm saying. And I don't want that to be misinterpreted. This is not me saying, "Oh, just get over it." No, this is me saying that life experience and being forced, because you would be forced on the regular to have social interaction and with, people in the everyday, you would have taught this woman either to work around this or overcome it. And it shows that she isn't really working on herself as a person, that this still happens to her on what I assume is a regular basis.
Well, keep in mind she's a journalist for Polygon, so naturally she's probably in a little bubble that says, "Oh, you're perfectly fine the way you are," or some shit like that. You don't need to improve.
Self-improvement is bad.
Yeah,
it feeds into the patriarchy.
Yeah, this is why. It's why, like, when going back to Chris Chan, there's kind of a thing that people, a lot of his the thing that bugs me about some of his defenders when they just try to say, like, "Oh, he has autism" and shit like that. I'm like, yeah, so do I, but you know what? us autistic people can still learn. We can learn from experiences. Chris Chan doesn't learn. He just stays static.
Exactly. Your mental disorder, your mental disease, your depression, your anxiety, your XYZ, it does not matter. Or it does not remove you from the responsibility of looking at yourself in the mirror every day and saying, I will be better. Or I will do better. I will try harder. But that's the thing, like, about a lot of these SJW types. They don't want to look at that because they don't want to see the monster they've become. Also, self-improvement is hard work.
Oh yes.
Self-improvement is hard work. One of my roommates is currently is in the gym at 4 a.m. every day, runs his own business, and is on a diet. Is on a diet, and he's been that way for months.
Oh, good for him.
And he is very much someone, and he is not. He's grumpy. Understandably so. If I had to be up at 3:30 every day just to make sure I was in the gym at 4, I would be grumpy too.
So are we talking about the aforementioned mutual friend?
Yes.
Ah, good for him.
Mm-hmm. But he's putting the work in because because he wants to improve himself, and it requires self-improvement requires hard work, and that's what these people don't understand. However, I can seemingly talk for hours when I run a gaming session. I'm able to flow narrative twists and turns with an agility that I rarely have outside the game. While each session is mentally exhausting, as it is for even in neurotypical DMs, I manage to keep pace with 6 other players these days. When I feel overwhelmed at parties or in loud settings, I remind myself that socializing is a skill I've developed. D&D has helped me build an interpersonal toolkit and social stamina that I never had before.
Overwhelmed at parties or a loud setting. What kind of loud settings are? Okay, this is a weird thing about. So, like, I've noticed this kind of stereotype that apparently autistic people hate really loud noises or some shit like that.
I know that's a thing.
I never said it. Like, yeah, I get whistling is a huge pet peeve of mine, but I never really blamed it on autism. I just kind of blame it more on my own personal irritability.
I know, like, in extreme cases, loud noises do mess with autistic people. Well, but
interesting.
I would say that it provides a little bit more context to overwhelm. So, I don't have a problem with the paragraph as a whole.
So this person,
except
sorry, you go first.
Except as it is for neurotypical DMs, I would say neurotypical. Probably not. I might still have the ADD running around in my head somewhere, but it very much is. I don't find DMing mentally exhausting. That's not to say. Oh, go ahead.
So just going back to the noises. This person sounds like an absolute stick in the mud to have if you ever take her to a concert or a ball game. Mm-hmm. If loud noises are enough to just get her exhausted.
That's not to say that gaming is without its faults. I'm usually anxious in the hours leading up to a game, where the nebulous idea of session prep consumes my thought. Building encounters and puzzles my group may never see is usually more stressful than exciting. Every time I end a session, I typically believe my group hated it, even though they keep coming back even after a year of gameplay.
That's a personal problem.
That's a you problem.
Oh god, what the fuck is that thing in the bottom right corner? 41-year-old toys that are worth more than your house.
Probably.
That freaky thing looks like it's gonna stab me to death in my sleep. Okay, we're almost done.
Despite the negatives, D&D is one of my favorite activities. However, there is one key benefit that reigns over all else. The thing I love more than the creativity, the social practice, and the hilarious moments surrounding the quest for a blue mushroom is that D&D allows me to connect with my friends in a way I couldn't before I started playing. As a person with autism, the fantasy world in my head is often more exciting than the world my friends live in. Thanks to D&D, I finally have a way to share it with them.
Yeah, this was a very, very nothing article.
Yeah. It had nothing to say, nothing interesting to add to any sort of conversation. It was boring, which I would argue is the biggest crime ever. If for you to be a journalist of any kind to produce boring work,
Yes.
a journalist, an entertainer of some kind, to be boring is to fail at your job.
Yeah. So a
Hopefully,
blue.
we didn't fail at our job tonight.
Yeah, hopefully not.
But anyway, look forward to next week. We are still talking with friend of the channel, Cedar Cheese. She's been on the channel before. We're going to review the first 3 episodes of a podcast full of LGBT plus survivors, supposedly.
Yeah. So what does it mean by survivor?
I don't know. I listened to the first episode, and aside from being boring, it didn't have like any sort of obvious LGBT message or anything like that. Well, other than that, it was like a boring. So hopefully we can get Cedar Cheese in here to review that with us. And also hopefully, if I can convince her, we may do a thing where we go through the I'm trying to think of the name. We may go through. I want to see if I can convince her to go through Dragon Age and Dragon Age 2 with just the cutscenes with me and talk about the story and how it's told and why it's better than ever. It's why it's still remembered as a classic. So hopefully that will happen. I need to talk with her about that. Also, Caesar.
Yes.
You need to get Dragon Age Origins and play through it. Yes. It's on sale right now. I know it is. You know why? Because I looked at Steam today.
Sure, once I get tired of playing Skyrim.
By the way, the pictures you've been sending of me of Skyrim have been giggle fodder.
Yes, I'm sure they are.
Anyway,
those corpses still won't go away, and all the civilians keep playing with them.
Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Catch us next week. We should be live, hopefully with Cedar Cheese. If not, me and Caesar will just review the podcast without her. Other than that, thank y'all and good night.
Yeah, take care.